guest with me. He's a black historian, a historian of the African diaspora. His name is Michael M. Hotep. And I want to welcome him to the show, and I think we're going to have a lively discussion. I'd like to have a discussion with Mike, especially about our economic independence. I think that's the way we have to go now. We can protest all day long, but if we're not economically viable, our protests fall on deaf ears, because we cannot buy or pay for the influence that we need to move our people forward and to make other people leave us alone. So therefore, we're going to talk with Mr. Michael M. Hotep and talk about how we in the African diaspora in our past history have moved forward, and how we as the leaders of the African diaspora, the sixth region in the African Union. That's what we are. We are the sixth region in the African Union of more than 54 nation states. So therefore, we need to have our own economy, because the economy that we serve now only serves us as us being their commodity in which they trade in. So therefore, I would like to welcome to the program Mr. Michael M. Hotep.
How you doing today, Roy? Thanks for having me back.
I'm glad to have you here, my
Excellent.
friend, and I do consider you a good friend.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Same here.
All right, so you got a program coming up soon. What is
Absolutely.
it all about?
I was on the show last Tuesday, actually, with Mr. Malik, and I was talking about the lecture I did at Nandy's Knowledge Cafe called "The Media's Deliberate Destruction of the African American Family." So I did that this past Saturday, just a few days ago, and I had so much information, I only got through about 20% of the presentation. So I have to do part 2 coming up Saturday, July 28th. It's going to be 2 p.m. to 7 p.m. at Nandy's Knowledge Cafe, located at 12511 Woodward Avenue in Highland Park, Michigan.
Is there an age limit on this?
It's not an age limit, not necessarily a minimum age. Teenagers can come as well. You know, parents can bring their teenagers, things like that. They definitely need to hear this information, because what we're going to do, and also this is a free event as well. We're just accepting donations there, so this is a free event. But what we're going to do is deal with a lot of the negative depictions of African Americans on TV today, but we're going to deal with the origins of a lot of these images. And one of the things that I started out with, as I talked about last time on the show, last Thursday on my show, the African History Network show, I interviewed Dr. David M. Hotep. No relation to me, but Dr. David M. Hotep is the author of a book called The First Americans Were Africans, Documented Evidence. And he deals with the African presence in the United States going back 51,700 years to the territory known as South Carolina. So I start out with a clip of him talking about African people sailing to the island of Crete, which is one of the largest of the Greek islands, 130,000 years ago. Okay, now this is totally contradictory to from what most of us have been taught. So I deal with that, and I bring it up to the mid 1800s and deal with the origin of a lot of these negative images, like the image of Jim Crow. The Jim Crow image starts in about 1828, 1829 with an entertainer named T.D. Rice, who sees a slave tending to the horses, and the slave is crippled and dancing, and he imitates this dance, exaggerates it, and comes up with this Jim Crow character. I deal with the origins of the Mammy character, the coon, the Sambo, things of that nature. Okay, and then I go throughout history, bring that up into the Civil War, the Birth of a Nation movie, 1915. Bring it up to
G.W. Griffith.
Yeah, D.W. Griffith as well. And a lot of people don't know that movie. It was based upon a book called The Klansman, and that movie called Race Riots in the Streets. Okay, it depicted.
It was even shown at the White House.
Yes, it was shown at the White House. Woodrow Wilson. Yes, it was shown at the White House, and I deal with a lot of that. A lot of people aren't familiar with that history, but even more important than that impact that it had, the movie was distributed by Louis B. Mayer. Okay, and the profits that Louis B. Mayer made with that, he teamed up with 2 other men named Metro and Goldwyn, and they formed Metro Goldwyn Mayer, better known as MGM Studios. Okay, so we have to understand the origin of Hollywood and where also these images come from and how they manifest themselves throughout history. I tie those images from the mammies and the coons and the sambos, which were mainly created by the South to justify slavery and create the image of the happy slave to counteract the abolitionist movement that was coming, especially when it was fueled in 1852 by the book that Harriet Beecher Stowe wrote called Uncle Tom's Cabin, okay, which galvanized the abolitionist movement. That book sold 300,000 copies in its first year, and it was banned in some states, including the state of Maryland, where Josiah Henson was born, who was the character that Uncle Tom was based upon. He was the real life person that this character was based upon. You had a case of a free African-American male who was caught with a copy of Uncle Tom's Cabin in Maryland, and he was sentenced to 10 years in prison for having a copy of that book.
In the North?
In the North, yes.
Where white folks live?
In the North, in the North, because the first colonies were in the North, the New England area, Jamestown, Virginia, Maryland, things of that nature.
New York State
New York
didn't emancipate its slaves to 1845.
Right, and not only that, New York, all these areas, New England. Well, you have Old England, which is where they came from, so they named that province New England. Okay, you have Old York. So you have New York, and they named it after that. So I deal with that, and I deal with how these images manifest themselves up throughout history. We can look in the 1980s. We can look at the Mammy image in "Give Me a Break" starring Nell Carter.
But Mike.
Yeah.
But all this is, I understand. I consider myself a student of history.
So am I.
And I understand, a great deal of that.
Mm-hmm.
But my focus. And I'm not trying to change the subject or anything, but my focus is on the economic relationship.
Sure.
And that's what I look at, because it was the economic relationship is why we were in bondage, because they considered us more
chattel slaves.
Well, before that, before the sugar industry came about.
Sugar cane and the sugar industry, right?
We was sitting in their courts up in Europe. As equals.
Well, not only that, you have actually, now this is one of the things I refer to, because I bring the ammunition, so I refer to a lot of articles. Now this article right here is from the New York Times, February 15th, 2010. It's entitled "On Crete, New Evidence of Very Ancient Mariners." Now this deals with African people not only going into Crete 130,000 years ago, but going into Europe 50,000 years ago, okay? So even before Europe was Europe, even before Europeans came into Europe, African people were there. And it was these African people, known as the Grimaldis, who get trapped in the Warm Ice Age and can't go back, retreat to the caves, and to negotiate the ultraviolet rays of the sun to get some vitamin D. Their skin starts to depigment itself, and over thousands of years they mutate into what is known as the Europeans, okay? Now to relate this to economics, I deal with how African Americans purchase 30 to 40% of all movie tickets. So we aren't going to just deal with the images we see in TV. We're going to deal with the images we see in the movies as well. We have to study the history of that and the origins of it, which comes out of European white supremacy. And if you do not understand European white supremacy, what it is and how it works, everything else will totally confuse you. This is what one of our great scholars, Dr. Francis Cress Wilson, as well as Dr. Neely Fuller, teaches us. So I deal with these origins, bring them up to today, and then we have to understand the economic opponent. 30 to 40% of all movie tickets are purchased by African Americans.
Now you give this information, this type of information out in your presentation.
Absolutely. I do a fantastic PowerPoint presentation. Last time I had so much information, I can only get through 20% of it. I'm going to deal with things that relate to our teenagers and our youth today. Like, let me show you this right here. This is the latest issue of Vibe magazine. All teenagers know what Vibe magazine is. On the latest issue of Vibe magazine, it says, "Meet your new role models: Candy, Tamar, Evelyn, and Chrissy." Now, these are all women from reality TV shows. Candy Burris is from Real Housewives of Atlanta. Evelyn Lozada is from Basketball Wives. Tamar Braxton is from Braxton's Family Values. So they're showing how these images of from reality TV shows are influencing our youth today. Okay, so we're going to deal with this. We're going to deal with a lot of the negative images. We're going to do an introduction into negative images coming from commercialized hip hop also. And then and one of the most important things I'm going to do is I'm going to show how a lot of the statistics that deal with our relationships and marriages are being put out by the media and being misrepresented.
How many, what is the capacity?
Capacity of this place holds about 50 people.
Hold about 50.
And then we have an overflow room on the other side. So it's a free event. People could come. I don't think we're going to turn away anybody. It's from 2 p.m. to 7 p.m., July 28th, at Nandy's Knowledge Cafe, located at 12511 Woodward Avenue in Highland Park, Michigan. It's going to be a fantastic presentation. If you talk to anybody who went to the first one, they'll tell you definitely come to the second one. And you can watch clips of it. I'm going to post clips of it probably tomorrow on my Facebook page, which is the African History Network, our Facebook fan page. And I'll have it on our website, which is africanhistorynetwork.com. It's our website also.
Does it cost anything?
No, this is a free event. We're just accepting donations there because we have to pay to secure the venue, pay for advertising, things like that. So this is a free event. Nobody will be turned away. We'll also have a wide selection of African history and African American history DVD lectures and CDs on sale at this event also. And I also want to let people know that this Thursday on my internet radio show, the African History Network show, we're going to have back on the show once again when our Grandmaster teacher is Renoko Rashidi. And he's going to talk about his new book, Black Star, The African Presence in Early Europe. Okay, so this is fantastic. He deals with the Moors in early Europe, Africans in Europe long before Europeans got there, things of that nature. So we're going to talk about that on the show this Thursday, 8 p.m. to 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. People can visit AfricanHistoryNetwork.com for more information on that, or give us a call at 313-462-0003. That's 313-462-0003.
Now, how do, again, how do they reach that site of yours?
Well, they can go to AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, www.AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. Also visit our Facebook fan page, The African History Network, as well on Facebook. And you can follow us on Twitter at The AHN Show, at The AHN Show. So we're going to have a lot of information at this. You definitely want to come, take notes. It's going to blow you away. I'm just giving you the tip of the iceberg. And one of the other things that I dealt with at the previous lecture, I'm going to get into it this time also. When we're taught to look at slavery, we usually aren't taught to really look at the economic component of it. Okay, traditionally, what would happen is when you had a slave master who had a trade or was a artisan or a craftsman or something like that, he would usually teach that trade to his slaves, so now he can have free employees. At the Museum of African American History, there is a display called a Working Life African American Occupations. When you go through the slave ship, you come out on the other side, you see the statue of Harriet Tubman. It's in that area. This is I took the time. I spent an hour writing this down. This is a list of 262 skills, trades, and crafts that Africans had in America prior to 1865. Okay, I deal with this in my lecture. All right, so these are things that we have to understand. To see when many Europeans tell the story, they want to make it seem like all we did was pick cotton, cook the food, take care of the children, tend to the horses and chickens, things like that. No, it was African labor that built this country. And a lot of these skills we brought from Africa with us.
They actually built more than just this country. They built Europe, too.
Oh, yeah, they built Europe. A lot of the castles that are in Europe that the kings and queens lived in, those are actually built by Moors.
But what I'm speaking of is economically, because the Africans was brought here over on the sugar trade. The producer is giving me the time.
Sure.
But however, they brought here on the sugar trade. Sure. And also it was African gold and minerals that the Europeans needed to trade with China for the China spices. So Africa actually built on their backs and their blood and sweat the European economy, which is now the world economy.
Well, definitely. And then once those non-European countries discovered an almost endless amount of natural resources, this brought in the industrial age in Europe also. They were moving out of we helped them move out of the Dark Age into the Renaissance, because it was the knowledge that the Moors brought in, the technology, things of that nature. And then when they discovered an almost endless amount of raw materials, this allowed them to get into the industrial age, the industrial revolution as well.
Okay, Mike, we got to wrap it up. So give us that information that we need in order to appear at your event?
Okay, once again, coming up Saturday, July 28th, 2 p.m. to 7 p.m. at Nandy's Knowledge Cafe, located at 12511 Woodward Avenue in Highland Park, Michigan. This is a free event. We're just accepting donations there. This is the media's deliberate destruction of the African American family, Part 2. You don't want to miss this one. For more information, give us a call, 313-462-0003. That's 313-462-0003. Or visit our website, www.africanhistorynetwork.com. That's africanhistorynetwork.com.